Air Force pilots chase UFOs in 1966, citing new details confirmed. One of the nice things about having older sightings is with time and research, a lot more details seem to turn up. People are a little more open and willing to come out about their previous experiences, where in the past, with the taboo around the UFO phenomenon, people were not always so keen to want to talk about this stuff. And this certainly is the case here with this story coming from MLive.com. Swamp gas or UFO? Michigan author believes aliens flew over Dexter Hillsdale in 1966. Some said it was strange lights outside their Hillsdale college dorm. Others said they saw floating discs near Dexter. Whatever it was, southern Michigan residents knew they saw something mysterious in the sky in March of 1966. Research into their claims led J. Allen Hynek, a U.S. Air Force consultant, to infamously call these sightings, quote, swamp gas. The methane released from marshy lands in the area. But Ray Szymanski, a retired Air Force engineer and Detroit native who writes about UFOs, is certain his research goes deeper than that published in 1966. He believes testimony and records he has analyzed prove that aliens flew a UFO across Dexter Hillsdale and elsewhere that night. Szymanski's third book in the series, Alien Shades of Greys, focuses on the now famous swamp gas sightings. Days after the incident caught the attention of many, including reporters at the Ann Arbor News and Walter Cronkite, officials deemed that the lights were flares from gases burning from the area's swamps. The explanation was so lacking that even the Congressman Gerald Ford, congressman at the time, called for investigation. Szymanski, who now lives in Ohio, has tracked down Air Force pilots who said they chased a flying object that spring 55 years ago after being sent into the air from Selfridge Air Force Base in Macomb County to investigate. The two captains were in the air for about 90 minutes while searching for the UFO, according to 40 hours of recorded interviews between Szymanski and one of the pilots. They used radar information from a military control center and onboard radar to locate it. One point of interest is they believe that it stopped in order to give the pilots a chance to catch up with it. Szymanski said it was taunting them. It seems that these entities have a sick sense of humor. After several minutes, the saucer-like flying object seemed to make an impossible 90-degree turn and disappear into the horizon, quote, in the blink of an eye. Very similar to what we've heard from the Nimitz encounter, the Go Fast video, that these things make, right-angled turns to defy physics and gravity, and they just kind of zip away out of sight in a blink of an eye. Szymanski's research for alien and UFO books is based on multiple eyewitness interviews, first-person accounts, and cross-referencing every possible detail, he said. He confirms their military records, assignments, titles, and any other detail possible. So he does his research. The reason he trusts the pilot's account is because 3 different identifying and locating methods. He says you've got to take everything to bedrock, and I've done that with this individual. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that he and his wingman not only intercepted that UFO and had visual sighting of it, but they also had a radar sighting of it, which means it was a solid object, not swamp gas. Szymanski has been researching UFO sightings since the late 1990s, when a sighting in Phoenix piqued his interest. At the time, he worked as an engineer at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the Ohio base known for Project Blue Book, the investigation of UFOs. He used to ask the intelligence officers there about the alien rumors, probing, I'm sure, no pun intended there, I'm sure, to see if they were true or not. That interest and repeated scientific poking around famous UFO sightings like Exeter, New Hampshire, and Phoenix ultimately led him to write books about his research. Szymanski believes the information he found changes history, or at the very least vindicates the dozens of eyewitnesses during that time who saw something mysterious in the sky. Quote, he says, to all those who vehemently denied that you saw swamp gas, you are hereby believed, and someone owes you a big apology. This is why I like to look at cases from a time before technology had gotten to a point now where everything is chalked up to CGI, or I feel like the new swamp gas is drones. Every sightings now, oh, it's a drone, it's a drone. So many are just chalked up to being drones, where it's not really fair. I feel like that's a lazy excuse, and that's about the equivalent of saying swamp gas. Back then, there weren't drones flying around in 1966, so they had to say something to try to cover the story or to get people, to get them off the trail. So they would say swamp gas, or weather balloons, another very popular one. And now with today, people don't accept swamp gas anymore. That's a silly excuse. So now it's drones, and that's supposed to be, well, that's the good cover story, or CG. And while there are a larger number of sightings that probably are drones or something else that's mistaken, that certainly cannot account for the thousands of sightings just in the U.S. alone, let alone the entire world. For instance, in 2020, now this was the lockdown, so people were probably had a lot more time on their hands and probably were looking up to the sky at every chance they were able to go outside, breathe some fresh air. The sightings alone from 2020 were listed at 11,100 reported sightings. Now that doesn't even take into account people who saw something and didn't report about it. I mean, my wife and I had several encounters over the span of a week in Joshua Tree. That's on film. I put that on Twitter. I've made videos about that, but we never officially reported it. So I'm sure 11,000 just reported. I'm sure there's a lot more that were not reported. And while, yes, some of these reports were probably multiple accounts of the same sighting, I think it probably evens out there. And you can't tell me that 11,000 of those were drones in the sky. How many drones could possibly be flying around America, in the span of a year? To the extent that you can't tell they're drones. I mean, to the extent that people actually feel like they need to report something because it's so odd what they're seeing. So I think that it's a lazy excuse to say drones, and that's why I do like looking at older reports, especially now that time's passed and there's more research and more people come out with their story on what they experienced at the time. You can't say that's drones because they didn't exist back then. You can't say that's CGI, because that didn't exist back then. So it's more fascinating to take a look at that stuff, and I think it does lend credibility to the phenomenon in general. But I will leave that up to you to decide. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this story. Thank you for watching. Do tune in on Sundays at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time for our live show. We talk about the UFO phenomenon, the paranormal, biblical prophecy, strange mysteries, and hidden histories. Thank you for watching.